Okay,
Go ahead.
so I am Sarah Jackson from Combustion Brewery and Taproom. My husband and I own the brewery. I am the one giving the tour today, and I actually pre-recorded the tour because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that you just can't capture in a short period of time. A lot of action in the front of the house and in the back of the house. And with social distancing right now, it would have been pretty challenging to try and capture everybody at one time since we have to be apart from one another. So I have pre-recorded our tour, and I can take questions afterwards if you all have questions. So give me just a second while I do an event space today.
Combustion is located in the downtown Pickerington Village in the old Creamery building. We opened our doors in 2017 and just celebrated our 3-year anniversary. The patio extension was put on last spring, so it's about a year old. And we have our existing patio on the front of the building. We have it all set up for social distancing, so when people come to visit, they can know that we are following all of the guidelines. Inside, this is what we call our saloon. Again, you can see that we have the tap room set up for social distancing. We've been able to set up with contactless ordering, so guests will be able to actually order directly from their tables and place their order at the bar, and they will receive a notification on their phone when their drinks are ready, and walk up to the bar and collect their beverages. As you enter the building, straight ahead of you, you can see our taps, and then to the right here, we have our brew house, and we will actually spend some time back in the brewery looking at how that brew house gets used a little bit more. This is where our taps are. Again, you'll get to see a little bit behind the scenes and see what it looks like behind those taps, but we have 20 taps. We try and keep as close to 20 beers on as possible with our infusions. All beers we serve are made here in-house, and we also have ciders as well. You can see we have a lot of crowlers out right now, and I'll try to explain that a little bit more later. All right, as we head on out into the lobby here, we are going to be heading towards our private event space. So this lobby is accessible off of Church Street, and the lobby is shared with Romeo's Pizza next door. We have an elevator and stairs to access the event space upstairs. So let's head on up and check that out. As you head upstairs, you walk into the great room. It's the great big room. And the entire event space is 7,200 square feet. We also have 2 private spaces that guests can enjoy. So perhaps these are suites that a couple may choose to get ready in with their wedding party. This one is easily converted into more of a party room when we are able to do so, and with the seating along the windows, and then we also have some nice big couches and lounge area. This is, again, back out in the main room. Oftentimes, this window is the backdrop for ceremonies. So tables and chairs can be set up out here when we have weddings. This is the view from the bar. There is a new bar up there that can accommodate more people and works better with the flow of our space. So we're pretty excited to have this new bar up in our private event space. Okay, walking into the second suite, this is what we call our butter room, because when this was a creamery, this is where the butter was made. It was the cooler. So this is the second suite or private space that people can use. We can set it up however makes sense. Sometimes people like to have smaller parties in here. If you don't have as many guests, you might choose to have a more intimate space. This would be that place for you. We've also set up cornhole in here if people wanted to have a little bit of a side game room. Okay, heading back into the tap room, we're going to go behind the scenes now and check out what happens kind of in the areas that our guests don't get to see. This is our barrel room. It typically is rentable. Right now it is being used for storage. Typically we do store our barrels in there, so you can see them here. We fill these barrels with beer and let them age. This one is from Watershed Distillery, and that's actually where we get lots of our barrels from. We know that we can get them soon after the whiskey is dumped out of them, and we really like to use them when they're fresh. So you can see that one right now has Brasky in it. We're gonna head into the brewery. You get to have a little glimpse of our fermenters there. This is the brain of the brewery. This is the calendar where we keep track of everything that needs to happen to make sure our brews are ready on time and everything is being kept on track. Into the cooler, we have our serving vessels. So those large vessels are serving tanks where the finished beer goes when it is ready to be served to our customers. We can hook the serving vessels up to our tap system right there, our draft lines. And then additionally, you can see we do have lots of kegs also hooked up. So we have 6 serving tanks that remain cooled in the cooler here. And then we have our kegs that we also keg off our beer into to serve beer from. New during quarantine, we had to get very creative with how we could get our beer out. And so you can see here our Combustion IPA, which is our flagship IPA, Cerveza, which is a seasonal beer. It's our Mexican lager. And we have El Jefe, our Hefeweizen, and lastly, Blueprint, which is a blueberry blonde ale. All 4 of those are available in cans currently. Here are our fermenters. So when we opened the brewery, we started with 7 fermenters, and soon after needed to put in an 8th one. Our original fermenters are all 10 barrel. You can see that one's bubbling a little bit. As we walk down the row of fermenters, you will see that the last one is twice the size as the others. That one is 20 barrels. So we have to brew a double batch into that. We have a 10-barrel brew house. So in order to get our 20-barrel fermenter full, we do need to put 2 batches of the same beer in there. And this one is more actively fermenting right now. When beer is fermenting, it releases gases, and you can see that in the buckets there. Okay, so here are the last of our fermenters. Next to the fermenters, we have our control panel where we can control the temperature of the fermenters. We have glycol being pumped into jackets around them. Next, we head into the grain room. This is where we store all of our grains that we use in our beer. It's also where the brewing process begins. Each batch of beer uses 1 or more different type of malt to get a specific flavor and color that the brewmaster, Keith Jackson, is looking for. So the barley is already malted when we get it in these bags. The process of malting barley is sprouting the grain to a specific point and then cutting off the sprouting process, kilning the barley to get color and flavor that you want in your beer. All right, we just headed down the loading dock and looking back at some of our supplies that head brewer Grant Anklem uses in his brewing process.
Hi, I'm Grant Anklem, head brewer here at Combustion Brewery and Taproom. Today we'll be brewing Wanderlust. It's our blonde ale, so come check it out.
Brewing starts with mashing in, then lautering, then we have the boil, fermentation, and then serving the beer. So we're gonna walk through that process today. Grant is preparing our brew house right now for mashing in. So essentially he is just creating a cover so that when the grains go in, they aren't going everywhere in the air. So the grain bags are all opened and ready to go. Now we need to turn the mill on. And we need to get that grain cracked open We're not pulverizing the grain, we're just trying to crack open the grain, and we need to then get it to travel through the grain auger and over to the mash tun. There is water over there already heated to the proper temperature for the specific brew. The mash is held at that desired temperature for about 60 minutes. During this time, enzymes within the malt convert to starches. Wort is the base of the beer, and at this point in the process, it's basically just sugar water. So wort is the end product of getting your grain cracked open into that warm water and sitting in that warm water for 60 minutes to get those enzymes activated and getting those malts converted to starches. So this is just a quick glimpse at one of our control panels over here where you can see the temperature, where we're controlling the temperature in the brew house. Here's a glimpse of what's happening inside our mash tun there. You can see those rakes are moving everything around, keeping the process going. And because this was pre-recorded, things are happening quicker, obviously, than they do. So we're going to kind of blow through the process here. But Grant is getting that last bag of grain in after we're done with mash in. And when all of the starch has been converted to sugar, the wort needs to be separated from the grain. So this is the lautering process. So first the wort is drawn from the bottom of the mash tun through outlets that are underneath the stainless steel screens and pumped over itself. This is called Vorlauf. And you'll get to see here in just a second, you'll get to see that Vorlauf is the German word that effectively means recirculate. So this process serves to create a natural fine filter bed that the husks of the grain that were left intact during the milling, those create a filter to trap any fine dust and particles in the grain. After about 30 minutes, the wort has cleared and is ready to be transferred or lautered over to the kettle for boiling. After about a quarter of the total wort is collected from the mash tun and over into the kettle, the brewer must start sparging or rinsing the mash with hot water from the hot liquor water tank, which is underneath our brew house. Okay, now we get to see Grant pulling out a sample from the kettle. And this happens a couple times. This is just the first time that we captured it. So the wort must be cooled. So this is the wort chiller. He's going to pour a sample into it and then turn on water that circulates around it to cool it down before we can check it. And he's going to be checking the gravity of the beer. And we do that a couple times throughout the process. Grant is weighing out hops. It's hop pellets that he's pouring into there and measuring them out. Hops are added at the beginning.
Sorry, let me get that going.
Grant has the boil going, and now it's time for him to grain out. So he is simply just retrieving the spent grain into this container, and then we'll have a local farmer pick it up and take it back to his farm. This is our plate chiller. It chills the beer before it moves over to our fermenters. So once the brewing process is complete, we will chill the beer. Brewing process is complete, we will chill the beer and send it through hoses over to our fermenters, where it will do its job of where the yeast is added, and then it will do its job of converting to alcohol. Okay, so now we see Grant is trying to get a sample off of a fermenter, and everything has to be very well sanitized. So you see him burning or spraying alcohol and then burning it off to create a sanitary environment, and he's just drawing off a sample. What he's going to get is a lot of yeast and maybe some hop pieces and particles in there. So he's going to dump off that first part. Also, maybe some sani might have been in there from cleaning it off. So he's just pouring off that first little bit, and then he's taking a true sample that he can then check the gravity of. And now we get to move actually into the tap room. So this is Chris. He is actually just pouring a beer today for pictures. So we don't have anyone in our tap room right now, so he's not pouring off for a guest or anything. He's just pouring to get a nice picture for some promotional. And Chris does all of our creative work. If you've seen our posters and stuff, that's him. So heading back in now that everything is done draining in the brewery from that sample, he was filtering out any particles. We are able to check gravity with a hydrometer is what that is. Our to-go service means filling lots and lots of crowlers. So you're gonna see how we do that now. So Danny's writing names. After Danny has rinsed the crowlers and purged them of any oxygen, he passes them over to Casey, who fills them with beer. And then Casey puts them on our sealing machine that will seal the tops on the crowlers. Once the beers are full, they get brought over to our loading dock and put in our cooler, and they are ready to be picked up. So this is online ordering. You can order to-go beer from us when your beer is ready. You will select a time to pick up. When the beer is actually ready, you will get a text to say it is ready for you to come get. So if it's ready early, you can come early. This is our merch section. We are still selling merch online. And we have shirts. We have these tin tackers, glassware. If you're not drinking here in the tap room right now, you can always enjoy your beers in our glassware at home. So this concludes our tour. Thank you for walking around with me today. Okay, so that is the end of the video. Let me just get my screen turned off here. Here we go. So I wanted to share that we are not open right now in the tap room. We are still shut down. We are doing to-go sales. You can order through our website, to-go sales, and then drive through and pick them up. But also announcing today, this has not been posted anywhere yet, that we are actually going to be opening for dine-in starting on Thursday. So that's pretty exciting for us. So we've been really busy
trying to make sure we can follow all of the guidelines and changing our space to accommodate people in all of our systems and all of that. So we will be ready on Thursday to welcome guests back in the tap room. So we have, as you could see in the video, we have mostly outdoor seating set up. We do have some indoor seats set up and ready to go. So that's kind of exciting for us for this Thursday. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I absolutely love Combustion. I'm wearing your shirt. Hi, Sarah. So I just want to thank Rachel for bringing everyone on and allowing us to take a tour, because it's one of my most favorite spots to go. And I feel like it's like just one of those hidden gems of Pickerington, so that are starting to be a wide known gem, but everyone should go there.
Thank you, Carissa.
Sarah, can you talk about food trucks? You guys have food trucks that come in, and how do we know what those are and when?
I'm glad that you asked about that. So we do have food trucks right now that are coming, and we will probably have them more frequently. You can find on our website or on our Facebook page, combustionbrewing.com is our website. You can see on our Facebook page all of our upcoming events, and we've put our food trucks on our upcoming events. When we do open later this week, we will not have the combustion kitchen fully up and running. So we will have, you know, some snack foods available, but don't come for a giant meal from Combustion, but we will have food trucks here to eat while you're here visiting. Romeo's Pizza's next door. So you're always welcome to bring either food from Romeo's or food from the food trucks. We ask that you don't bring other outside food in, but there are those options when our kitchen is not available. Thank you for asking. We also put our beer releases on our events. So we've been trying to do more infusions of our beers and of our ciders. So if you're interested in those things, we try and put them on our events as well.
I had another question about when you guys, how do you choose what you want to have seasonally? Like, I know my husband's gone on the website and tried to order specific things, and he's like, oh, they don't have it right now, and we have to go back when they have it. How do you plan that out, and what does that look like?
Okay, another great question. So there's a lot that goes into it. So as you could see, we have 8 fermenters, and we have so much space in our serving, in our capacity to serve. So a lot of how much we can make available is dictated on how frequently we can brew and if we have space. So we're limited by our timeline in terms of how much capacity we have, but then also certain beers are better for certain times of the year. So my husband, Keith, is the brewmaster. He has been brewing for over a decade now. I don't remember how long it is at this point. And he is really the mastermind behind our recipes. Grant is our head brewer. They work together to come up with our schedule and fine tune the recipes. But there are just certain beers that make sense for certain times of the year. So our survey stuff, for example, you won't see that, or you haven't seen that all year round. That's one that we bring out in the spring. Maibach is another example of one that you see coming out in the spring. And then there are certain heavier beers that just make sense for the winter. There's a lot of history behind beers and when you drink them and why you drink them when you drink them. Sometimes it has to do with the harvest. Sometimes it has to do with German traditions. So Keith is really the best person to go into the details of the history, and he would be happy to talk to anybody about beer anytime. So when we are open and when Keith is around and you're allowed to get within 6 feet of him, he would love to talk your ear off about why we choose the style of beers that we do and why we serve them in the glassware that we serve them in. Everything is very purposeful from when we serve it, how we serve it, all of that. So
what's your top 3 favorite beers?
me personally,
Yeah.
oh, that's a hard one, Carissa. So I feel like, again, it can be seasonal. What I choose to drink can be seasonal. I would say that my all-time favorite combustion beer is Now We're Talking. It's our double IPA. That we don't have that on right now. Just logistically, our brewery has had to change quite a bit through the shutdown, and based on our abilities in our storage and all of that, we haven't been able to brew like we typically would. So right now we do not have Now We're Talking, but that is my absolute favorite. I'm really liking our Piscos series that we have, and Rachel and Carissa were actually in the brewery when we were brewing our International Women's Day brew, which was our very first Piscos that we did. So now we have started a Piscos series, and I'm liking that one. Now we're talking. So,
what about some of the other partnerships that you do with Pickerington? I know you do a lot with the chamber, and I know you offer a lot of programs upstairs for things like international women's events. I mean, maybe list a few of the partnerships that you guys are involved with.
Yeah, so I would say that the foundation of our business is really centered around, well, number one, fresh, high quality craft beer, but also we really want to be a place where the community can come and gather. And we've tried to, we are not from Pickerington. So this is kind of a new community for us. And we've tried to create partnerships within the community as the new people. And some ways that we do that is, like you said, we get involved with the chamber, but we do the library. We've done programs with the library actually at the library. They do it's hard to talk about what we do because sometimes it's what we did and what we can do now, but we do book club with the library. We partner with the local Pelotonia team. We do a lot with them. Schools, we do lots of fundraisers. If you've seen our euchre nights, we try and partner with different local organizations to do euchre nights. The food pantry is right down the street. So we try and work with them as well. We're pretty involved with the Pickerington Village Association. That is who runs the farmers market here. And then we also created our Oktoberfest in conjunction with the Pickerington Village Association. So we try and be as involved as possible when we know things are going on in our community. We try and figure out how we can stay connected.
Pam had a question on here. It kind of goes back to the history, but she said, do you pair the history with what's being served?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Pam, are you still on? I can't see everyone's faces.
I'm here, sorry. Yeah, no, I just wondered if you took that opportunity when you're serving things to not just like if you can catch them, but somewhere post some kind of educational history about why you're serving this and kind of where that background comes from.
Yeah, so a lot of times when we release a new beer, we do a tapping. And what that looks like, was typically those are happening on Tuesday nights. Those are our Mug Club nights. If you're a Mug Club member, you know about Mug Club night. And we try to be available to drink beer with our customers. Normally, a typical interaction with us when you come in is to walk up to the bar and be greeted by one of our awesome bartenders who can learn about you, what you're interested in, and talk to you about the new things that we have on. So we value that face-to-face quite a bit, which is really challenging right now. So we value that face-to-face and trying to communicate with our customers. But then also on these release nights, you'll see Keith and Grant in particular, the two brewers here. you will see them sitting at tables with our customers, talking about the beer, getting to know our customers. And right now you'll also see, if you look on our Facebook page, when we're doing releases, we're highlighting certain beers. So these beer spotlights are getting a little bit more in depth about the character within the beer, and then also, some of that history is included as well. You can't ask Keith about a beer without getting the history. So if you, if he is if he is the one serving you the beer, then you're getting a lot of information about the beer, and then that radiates to the rest of our employees, and they get excited from Keith and his excitement about the beer. I know I do. So if you hear Keith talk about a beer, then our employees are kind of soaking that up and also getting really excited about it and sharing that enthusiasm with our customers.
That's 100% true about your bartenders. When we were up there for the women's event, like we walked up and we got a, what's it called, a flight, and we couldn't, there was a bunch of women around me and no one knew what they liked and what would they like to try. And the bartenders were really great. They were like, well, do you like this kind of a thing? And should we try this kind of thing? And they like walked you through it. So I definitely agree with that. They were really, really great when we were there.
Yeah, they even will pick for you if you just tell them this is the type, like, let's say you like, I don't know, Killian's and Bud Light and whatever else. And then you can tell them those are the types of beers I would normally just buy. And they'd say, okay, let me give you these 4 to try. I really love that about the bartenders. I think, and to Pam's question, they also do nights where they do tastings. And like she was saying, like when they, start the new beers, they just have all kinds of different events where you can learn more about the history. But while you're in there, you're going to learn so much just by asking. So.
Yeah. And I just wonder, like if you're releasing a seasonal beer and your marketing material, like putting out, I didn't know if you put out like any kind of like, here's what we're offering and here's a bit about it and why we're doing it, or like on your cans or your crowlers or those kinds of things of putting any kind of educational information. Personally, I'm drawn to the artwork and stuff that's put on cans these days for breweries because I think they're phenomenal. They're like, it's like going to an art gallery whenever you go to some of these stores that have all of the local breweries. But just that opportunity to visually have, if I don't make it to an event or I can't come in, there was still available.
Let me tell you about our cans. So we don't can, but now we do. So we purposefully have tried to pour beer directly from our taps to a glass for someone because we know it's freshest then. And then we're also able to serve our to-go beer in our crowlers and growlers. So the crowlers are basically a supersized can, and we fill them directly from the tap and seal them. So you saw the crowler machine in the video, and those are good for 2 to 3 days. So we're trying to keep our beer as fresh as possible, get it to you at its freshest, and you drink it when it's its freshest. With those cans, they are general. They're a general crowler, and then we write on them what it is and the ABVs, how long it's good for, all of that. So we have one generic crowler can, and that's how we have existed since we opened until our shutdown. And having to transition and pivot in this time has been extremely fast-paced, trying to keep up with the changing times. And so our solution that we had to quickly come up with for labels, the process of getting labels is not as simple as just having them printed. You have to get them approved by the liquor department. So we decided our cans, with our very short window of time, were just going to be our crowler can labels with the beer name and the details of that specific beer in a very small spot, just like you would see on our crowlers. And so our labels right now are very generic for the 4 beers that we are able to can right now. And we don't have a canning line. So we have been essentially renting out a canning line for another brewery that is able to get their our canning line to us. So Outer Belt Brewing, we have been using their services in our brewery to actually be able to can some beers, which is very new to us. So you aren't seeing our label as we may have chosen to put it out there to the public. It was, you know, a quick turnaround. So perhaps down the line, if we are able to continue canning, then you may see those can labels changing to be a little bit more of what we would have hoped they would have been if we had been able to purposefully roll them out in the way that we had wanted. So yeah, you're not going to see a lot of details actually on the can about the history of the beer, although that sounds wonderful, and we would all love it if that was true. When we do release beers, we do put out as much information as we can on social media about the beers, about the background of the beers, why we're serving them, and what they are like. So we do our best to try and market our beers specifically for what we're serving.
You can't buy combustion beer anywhere except from the brewing, from your location, right?
Correct, yes. So we don't have, you won't be able to buy our beer on shelves anywhere. From time to time, if we have a special partnership with somebody, like if we're doing a collaboration brew or something like that, you may see our beer on tap somewhere else, but that's pretty rare to see that.
Yeah, I tried to get the blood orange cider a few weeks back and it was sold out.
We joke around that we're going to need to get bodyguards to protect us when we release that blood orange, because people are very, very interested in it, which is wonderful, and we appreciate it.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Does anyone else have anything else for Sarah? I'm trying to scroll through here, but.
I mean, my only other question would be, when are you going to put one in Somerset? But
yeah, not this year, Carissa. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, Sarah, we really, really appreciate you being on today. I learned a lot when I was up there for the tour, but I think I got more out of today too. So I think it's important to remind everybody that you should still go and take a tour, even though you got the tour online today, because it's probably way better in person. So I thank you, and we really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I want to thank you for inviting us to do this. This is an awesome opportunity. We're really missing having people in our space and interacting with our customers, and this is just a little bit of a way to do that. And thank you for allowing us to do that. And the tour was super condensed. I feel like I gave you just a thin layer of what happens here. When we are able to have you in here and offer tours again, please ask if you can see the behind the scenes in person, because you'll get a lot more information than I was able to offer today. So thank you all so much for joining us.